to follow? How many of you need verbal skills to tell people where you need to go? I mean, I was able to drive the car. He says mastery does not mean consciousness, so a person can do things without thinking about it and really get it correct. But if you ask them to do it again or tell them how you did it, they can't do it. But we want our students at Faulkner Academy to be able to tell why they did a certain thing, why they went through the process, how they went through the process. We want them to have that ability. Is that possible? Sure, it's possible. If the teacher understands, and our teachers will be trained by Feuerstein consultants so that they can mediate students' learning and that they can identify the functions that are not working in students. He says that when students don't get information or task, it's not a trait. And I remember a teacher saying, talking about a student in the teacher's lounge, you know, he's just like his sister and brother. They didn't get it and he didn't get it. You know that family is coming in here again, and I had the mother, and the mother didn't get it, and all of her children are not getting it. That means it's a trait. But Feuerstein says that's not true, that students are in a state. Again, we have to identify the cognitive functions that are not working and mediate those functions. Because I think now, if someone mediates something that I don't know, then I get it. I was able to drive my car. Hey, I'm on the car thing. I was able to drive my car to school the next day, and I remembered my impulsivity slowed down. I had the verbal skills, the clutch. I was able to do all of those things, and if I were to think about it a little more, I could tell you all the other words that my mother told me. I was able to drive that car to school. We're into the business of transforming. We want to transform your students. There's a saying that I've heard, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So I know at this school, we're going to have to eliminate some of the old ways of learning that your children have been taught and give them the new way. If you look at my chart here, some people call Feuerstein the transformer, because if you look at the first row, in principle number 1, in the classroom, the teacher is going to be scaffolding and mediating your child's learning. Remember, 30 minutes a day, they're going to be in a reading group working at their instructional level. The afternoons, they're going to take these same ideas that they're learning in reading and put them in math and science and social studies, the content areas. They're going to have a whole 30 minutes of teaching, of thinking, being taught how to think so that they can bridge those thinking ideas into reading, math, and science, and social studies, even art, even PE, even music. So if a child is impulsive, the impulsivity is slowed down through the cognitive part because the teacher is going to be scaffolding, the teacher is going to be mediating, the teacher is going to be modeling, the teacher is going to be cueing, the teacher is going to be guiding. And then once we move to that second level, that's when the student starts making sense and the teacher can start identifying the cognitive functions that are working and the cognitive functions that are not working. And she's going to spend a lot of time on those functions that are not working. So if a child comes to us with a lot of deficiencies, the teacher will have an IEP. And the IEP, every child will have an instructional plan. I don't care whether special ed or gifted, they'll have a plan. And this plan will help us look and monitor their thinking. Feuerstein says that there are 3 ways to process information. He says the first stage is input, how we take in information. The second stage is how we elaborate or how we reason or how we make sense. And then the third part is the output, the showing of it. So throughout the day, the teacher will have an instructional plan, and it will look something like this. Can we give everybody one? We don't have the final copy yet, but a portion of it will look, so if we put this on our heads like this, it'll look like the brain, because when we process information, we do it 3 ways. So Feuerstein broke up our thinking in 3 different parts: the input, the elaboration, and the output. So this is going to be a part of our instructional plan. And when this is over, I'll ask for questions if you have questions, and I hope I'm not going too fast, but I get really excited about this whole process. So I want you to think about your brain and how we can change it, and it can grow, and it can be different. So the first part is gathering information. When the teacher uses this plan, number one, let me give you an example. Today, in our kindergarten class, we're going to be talking about airplanes and different types of airplanes. Now, I have a group of students, believe it or not, they're not sure about airplanes. You know, they don't have a schema. Schema means background knowledge for airplanes. But the teacher says, today we're going to talk about airplanes, and our story in our big book is going to be about airplanes. And she starts the lesson. So then she moves from the gathering of information, but that's all she's given the class, is that we're going to talk about airplanes today. And then she moves into the teaching about airplanes and about the character, and she moves into it, and she asks a few questions, and then she moves into the output, which is where she asks kids questions. Well, let's stop right there. We have kids in the classroom who have no idea about airplanes. They have no idea how airplanes work, what they do, where they go, those types of things. Right away, we've set up a cognitive block. The teacher has moved on to elaboration. She's taught the lesson. The teacher has moved into the output, where she starts asking questions, and the child is still sitting there. Half the class is still sitting there because they have no idea about airplanes. Already there's a cognitive blockage. And if the teacher has not been cognitively trained, the teacher thinks that those kids don't want to do anything. They're not interested in what I'm talking about. The lesson was blown for over half the kids in the classroom. Of course, there were some kids in the classroom who got it, but you have a big portion of kids who did not get it. The teacher down the hall says, boys and girls, today we have a lesson about airplanes. I want you to look, I brought pictures, and I want you to look at all these pictures about airplanes. We have a helicopter, we have a this, and one student raised his hand. You know, my uncle drives one of those. Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, he was in the service and he did da-da-da. Well, bring pictures. Can you bring pictures tomorrow? Yeah, I can. Okay, let me give you some more information. I have a short video clip that I want you to see of different types of planes. So she shows the video clip. And they have a dialogue about airplanes. The dialogue goes on for a while, and then the teacher says, the concept that we're going to learn today is. Now, what percentage of kids are right there with her? How many? All of them are right there with her. Okay, let's go into a 5th grade classroom. Today we're going to begin a unit on the Civil War. What do you know about the Civil War? And they tell us all this stuff about the Civil War. Great job. And there's a dialogue going on with the kids. Then she says, okay, let me tell you a little bit about the Civil War. And she gives various perspectives, and the kids have this big dialogue. and then she starts the lesson.